on spiral dynamics and political parties. Hello, this is Chris speaking. Wake up with a video about spiral dynamics and political parties. It has been very interesting the last few years to observe political parties. The first thing, of course, we have to say that the whole idea of democracy and political parties is a first-tier idea, is an orange idea. It's very logical to have representatives in the form of individuals and parties for different groups of interests. So it's very orange. So the sad news is that there are no second-tier parties. This whole party stuff doesn't fit into second-tier thinking, feeling, experience. Please leave it in the comments if you know a party which is centered in yellow. I have not found any. I have found several small parties in some countries that are on exiting green, the last stage or sub-stage of the first tier. That is possible. But after that, they don't really know what to do. And there is no second-tier center of gravity yet collectively in the world or in any country. It needs to be at least 10%. That's the theory. It's probably true. It needs to be at least 10% to have a yellow possibility and then something emerging out of it. Right now, many countries are lucky if they have 10% green center of gravity population. There are some countries that have a lot of green center of gravity, like in Scandinavia, for example, Denmark, for example, Netherlands also, even Great Britain, but they don't do anything with it. The usual thing is to have a two-party system, a Conservative Party and a Labour Party. That is the British system, and it has been copied all over the world in all countries that at least try to be democratic. Of course, the whole system of democracy was invented in ancient Greece, where it didn't last very long, and then to some degree also in ancient Rome, where there was also one conservative party of the landowners, of the aristocracy, and one party of the populace. Now we have in most countries a two-party system and then several small parties. There are exceptions. In Germany, for example, the Green Party is very large now. It's as powerful as the two former main parties. But that was only possible because the Green Party de-radicalized itself and is now more orange than green. Because we have to separate the party line, the official party program, from the people who are actually members of the party and who hold or would hold offices if they are elected. Okay, so the usual thing is two main parties which are both relatively conservative. They both want to maintain the status quo, which is blue. To keep things as they are is blue. So usually you have a conservative party which is at the entering stage of blue and a Labour Party which is at the exiting stage of blue. If from the members, the party line, of course, yes, the Conservative Party is blue and the Labour Party is usually, if you read the program, it's orange, almost green. But in practice, both parties are usually blue, so nothing changes. Doesn't matter if you vote Labour or Conservative, or in other countries maybe, whatever it is called, Republican and Democrat, there's no big difference. In Germany, for example, there has been a great coalition for some time. Both of these big parties have ruled together because they are so very compatible. Then there's the question, are there red parties? Yes, there are red parties. Of course, they are not for democracy. They are for dictatorship or for war or any other kind of extortion and suppression. And those are a little bit rarer, of course. They usually don't have power. But the most popular thing about red in politics is individuals who are centered in red who find their way into blue and orange parties and then work their way up, wait to get into office, and then practice corruption. Because the red center of gravity is, of course, I, me. They're only interested in their own personal wealth and health and benefit, and not in the collective. So people who practice corruption, they're usually in a red center of gravity. Not necessarily, but often. Okay, that's red. There are some right-wing parties that are somewhere between red and blue, but also conservative parties can be between, can be blue with a tendency towards red. Some conservative parties are blue-centered with a tendency towards orange. Then the less conservative parties, the Labour, the Democrat parties, they seem to be orange, yeah, for the worker, less restrictions, more freedom and so on, but they're often somewhere fence-sitting between blue and orange. But they're also usually interested in the status quo and to keeping things as they are, even if it sounds different in the party program. Then there are the liberal parties. The liberal parties are usually centered in orange in a way that they want to remove restrictions, but mainly for the industry, for economical reasons. Then there are green parties. The green parties are usually centered in green. Often the name is what it says, but sometimes it's not. Yeah, large green parties are often centered in orange. And also there are some in Scandinavia, some larger parties that are partly green, partly Democrat, Labour, and they are also more orange than green. It's very difficult to have a powerful green party because, of course, you need also people who vote for them. Firstly, you need people, members of the party who then would take office and then really do what they promise, which is kind of rare. And secondly, you need, of course, people who vote for them. And since in most countries you don't have more than 10% voting for them, they will never be in office or not in a majority constellation or coalition. Partly because also, of course, not everyone is going to vote. Usually 2/3 of the population is going to vote. So if, let's say, 15% of the population is centered in green, 2/3 are going to vote, then the maximum of the votes the Green Party could get is 10%. But of course, a lot of people who could vote green, they're actually voting for other smaller parties. Yeah, there are, for example, left-wing parties. Left-wing parties can be all over the place, but often left-wing parties are also centered in green. Yes, green is revolutionary. So the green movement could be revolutionary. Left-wing could be revolutionary. And then there are many small parties who are interested in animal rights or saving the climate or direct democracy or humanistic ideals or love or whatever, gay rights, all of those parties are usually centered in green. So the potential of the green voters is distributed all over these smaller parties, and also a lot of people who are centered in green do not vote at all on purpose. They don't believe in the system, so they don't vote. Same goes for people who are centered in second tier, which is in most countries maximum 1%, usually less. Most of those do not go to vote. So usually the people who are spiritually most advanced don't go to vote and leave all the politics to the less developed people who just want to go on as they always have been. There are of course no beige or purple parties. There can be no beige party and purple parties, even if it's a party that is comprised of indigenous folks who are fighting for the rights of the indigenous. They're usually green parties, not purple parties. Yeah. Plus, beige and purple are kind of theoretical colors. They have been invented by Clare Graves to round off his theory. It's not that he ever really encountered cultures, groups of people, or many individuals who were centered in his beige or purple, so we can forget about beige and purple. And red, of course, red is striving for dictatorships, not for democracy. And democracy is only working within a blue, orange and green framework. We don't know what could be an alternative, except in Orwell, for example, which is kind of a mixture between an anarchy and democracy. There is no government, so there's no need also for parties. Everyone has equal rights. It's the most direct democracy, but of course it's a small community of 4,000 people. Is not the same as 100 million. Once a society passes beyond a certain size, the idea of representatives is the most logical one, but maybe not the only one. So I'm very excited to see, I'm waiting for a country that is developing, bringing forth a 10% plus percentage of yellow-centered people, and then let's see what happens. Could be very interesting. Okay, that is it about political parties and spiral dynamics. Please leave your comments below. It's very interesting. Look at as an exercise, as an exercise, especially if it's voting time. Look at the parties in your district or in your state or in your country. Read the party program and then look at the people who stand for the party, especially those who have stood in office for this party already. And then compare, and you will probably see a difference, especially in the big parties that most people vote for, the two main parties. They usually, the members of the party are of a lower center of gravity than the program. For them it's also an aspiration. Yeah, they are members of this party because they want to achieve this program, this party line, but they themselves are not there yet. For them it's also a way to go, a direction. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing or joining me on Patreon, and see you soon.